Your judgment has value. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Why are you giggling today? Are you giggling?
Hello, everybody. It's Tim Bennett. Happy top of the Pride to everyone from the Pride Leprechaun.
You know, it's funny, John. If you're watching our video cast, I'm in a white shirt, as is John, which we never wear. I would, if we went back and looked, we would never. No. I don't think we'd ever see us in white. Perhaps it's funny. I don't know if we're on the same wavelength.
We sign on from different locations, and I sign on, and Tim's like, "Oh, you're wearing white," and he's.
Yeah, very funny, very funny. So, thanks for joining us here at the Focus Group. We're released here every Wednesday in a video cast, and then re-released in audio only for easy transmission or easy transportation or whatever we want to call it. Easy use on Saturdays. And learn all about us at focusgroupradio.com. You'll also find our companion podcast there, which is TFG Unbuttoned, 20 minutes in and out. Traditional podcast, right, John? 3 stories in and out.
Just love the way 20 minutes in and out.
In and out. Well, our friend Steve, who listens to us, he says his subway ride. So the show he listens to Unbuttoned and he listens to the Focus Group. But he says sometimes the Focus Group is too long for the subway ride. So he puts us on double
2X.
Speed.
2X. Yeah.
And then listens that way so that he's done in the subway ride.
He'd have a much funnier ride if he put us on minus. You know that? And then I shot, that, yeah.
He had sandwiches.
Have you done that in the car lately? I did it the other day with Bob. I almost drove off the road laughing because it was a normal sentence becomes this agonizing, thing. It was hysterical. There's one of our listeners sent us a note about this, and he heard us talking about this exact thing not too long ago, and he sent another note saying, "Oh my God, guys, I still listen to you." A listener from back in the Sirius XM days. In fact, I'm sure most people listening, a large chunk of our audience goes all the way back to Sirius XM.
It's funny. I saw somebody, I think it was Frank DeCaro and Jim Colucci posted something. Somebody made the recommendation to Frank that they should reconstitute OutQ again, and which I'm not sure they could ever do that again. Do you think so? I think you could, but I think it would be vastly different than the lineups that they initially had.
You know what I think, and I was going to talk about this with you anyway in regards to a different project we're doing. Everything is so time shifted, and I'll call you later. I'll text you before I call you. We've talked about this before. There's something about live that you can't deny. And what if you did a programming block maybe, like once a week, and it was the best show, like our favorite shows, or you and me, Frank, DNR. Michelangelo's over. He's on Progress now, so he's live every day. But it would kind of be like when Aunt Barbara does her Facebook Tupperware stuff. She has a lot of people
live at 8, 9 o'clock at night on Saturdays.
Yeah, and she has a lot of people signing on, right?
Yeah, and it's just her phone. She does it with her iPhone, which I don't quite understand, but it doesn't. Even though it's stationary, it's static. It works, and she does cooking. Mm-hmm. She does it. She'll make meals sometimes and cook and chat, but. Yeah, I wondered about that because we miss the call-ins. We miss some of the games we used to be able to play, or when people would correct us, rightfully so. Sometimes we have misinformation, or we would think something differently.
Like me and I and me.
You too. Yeah, we used to get that all the time. In trouble. Our grammar. Blame it on the Connecticut public schools.
Our grammar apparently was perfect, except for that. And I actually mentioned this to my mom a long time ago, and she just laughed. She said, she goes, a lot of kids don't get that. She goes, there's all these lesson books about when to use it, how to do it.
Well, there's a famous car dealer we've talked about, Ernie Bach. And
New England.
he used to do, right. And so he would say, come down for the best prices in his Boston accent or whatever. And somebody on the sideline would say, says who? He says I. He would say, says I. Says who?
Yeah.
Says I. And it's supposed to be, right, says me. But maybe it's just a colloquial thing with New England that we would always say I rather than me.
I just don't know.
We were talking about, Marianne and I were talking, we both went to college in the Midwest at Marietta, and we had a speech professor, which constantly, I found some papers one time when I was moving, and critical of my accent. She was trying to get me to change the way I said certain things. Apparently I said quarter. I guess we would say quarter instead of quarter. I don't know. I can't even say it right. Quarter. We'd say quarter instead of quarter.
Quarter, yeah.
Yeah,
Quarter.
and then I would also
Okay.
quarter instead of quarter. We'd say quarter, like CORD, I guess.
Well, how would you say if you're buying a quart of milk, right?
Quart.
Yeah,
So
quarter.
quarter.
So quarter,
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, she would always say I pronounced that wrong, and the other thing I would say wrong was, well, I would get the me and the I wrong. There was something else, and we were just laughing because I thought, well, she was going to change.
you know
draw, dresser, draw.
A drawer.
Instead of drawer.
Yeah.
We say dresser.
And you know me in the word debacle.
Debacle.
Debacle. Is it
Where'd you get
debacle?
debacle? Where'd you get debacle from?
I don't know, but see, I did it wrong again. And here's a little refresher for you, or from a story you told on Unbuttoned or the show last week. I'm in the laundry room and I heard neighbors of ours were doing laundry and they have kids, and they were talking about how their youngest, or one of their kids, doesn't take critique very well. And they were wondering about, I said, have you heard of the compliment sandwich? They start laughing. I said, Family Guy, one slice of bread is something good, the middle's the bad, and the other piece of bread is the good. Good, bad, good, compliment sandwich. I said, or you could be like my business partner and friend Tim, I said, who was in history class one day, and the teacher hands back a paper, and everybody gets their paper except him, and his was handed back in a Ziploc bag. And you can finish that story.
Yeah, because he said shit or crap should not be handled.
They were aghast, and I said, hey, public education in the 70s, right?
Yeah, no, and I deservedly so. I mean, my source for my story,
Your grandmother,
Quebec, it was my grandmother
in Canada,
who was of English ancestry, and it was about why Quebec wanted to leave the Union, leave the Canadian Federation, and so of course it was from her English point of view. So it not a good, but I still think valid. I must have kept that. I can't imagine I would have thrown that away. It's got to be. I've got 2 tubs. Richard was pulling some stuff out the other day, and I have 2 tubs of papers that I've been through countless times but papers from high school and college. And I found a few report cards from my mother that she had saved.
Yeah.
I thought I did better than I did in some cases. I was looking at some of them. Apparently I was disruptive in class at times, or I could be social. I could, not pay attention. So.
I take that as a plus. Bob saved some of his old report cards, and one of them has a teacher comment that the only negative thing she had to say is sometimes he spends too much time in the sandbox. Like, is that good or bad? Or it's a sandbox, He's so funny.
At the end of the day, have you ever gone on a job interview where anybody asked your GPA?
No. Nope. Were you part of Phi Beta Kappa? Who cares, right?
I
what they care about, though, Tim?
Yeah.
For you and me, when people found out we put ourselves through school and had multiple jobs from high school through college, that made a difference. It wasn't about the GPA. It was like, oh, you're a hard worker.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember telling my my forklift stories of driving the forklift and spilling ice cream. And you did the widgets. What were you making online? You were making little motors or something.
Little metal parts for motors. Yeah. Hours and hours of the same part had to be milled. Oils everywhere. At the end of the day, you had to strip. That factory job.
Were you getting paid minimum wage, or how were you
a little
paid?
Above minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember minimum wage back then was $3.12 or something.
Yeah, $3.12, $3.15. Yeah.
And I remember I got a raise at the bookstore to $3.23.
Oh,
I was so excited they were going to give me a raise. And I thought, you gave me a 10-cent raise?
Yeah. You made better money at Baskin Robbins.
Oh,
you were union.
Yeah, I was a Teamster. Yeah, that was outrageous. That was for the 80s. It's still good money now. It was.
Yeah.
And if I worked on, which I did, the 4th of July or
You always
Memorial
worked
Day
holidays.
or any
Yeah,
holidays,
yeah.
you got triple time. So I was making $33 an hour. And this is in 1982, 83, 84. $33
I remember
an hour. It's quite good.
in summertime, I'd see, hey, what are you doing for the 4th? You're like, I'm working.
Yeah.
And it didn't phase anybody because you were making good money. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was lucky.
That was all money for the next semester of college.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And Connecticut had something where I forget there was a certain, either for college kids or something, there was some tax benefit that you weren't taxed on it.
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
The state tax was, you were a certain age, whatever, and they didn't collect state. Federal, maybe, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what caught your eye this week, Mr. Nash?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
This probably happens a lot more than people suspect, but it caught my eye because I think that if you see something like this or someone is in need, definitely help. The headline was from this publication. It said, she thought her bank needed $18,000. A store clerk told her, no, it's not your bank. So a store clerk at a store out in Westlake, Ohio, and her name is Rose Crumbly, was stocking shelves, and she noticed that an 85-year-old woman was standing by a Bitcoin machine. Now, I don't know if you've seen it looks like an ATM.
No.
And the woman had like a wad of cash, approximately $18,000 in cash.
Oh my God.
The woman is standing at the Bitcoin machine holding this wad of cash, and she's on the phone. And so this Rose Crumbly like watches this for a little bit, and then she goes over and she interrupts the woman, and she said, what are you doing? And she said, well, my bank claims they need $18,000. So she said, well, put them on hold for a second. So she did. And Rose Crumbly had them call the police at 911. And it turns out that it was a scam, right? But it ended up that the woman didn't lose money. The police couldn't necessarily track it to who did. They kept them on the phone as long as they could to see if there was any way of figuring this out. But the Westlake police said this happens more than you suspect, especially with seniors, because they're getting more and more sophisticated with how they find you. Now, I'm suspicious of anything, period. Like if you get something from the Social Security Administration that isn't official or, so we're aware of it because I think our generation grew up with this. But if you're older and you're kind of like poking around, it doesn't really, you can get scammed pretty easy.
Well, you believe what people tell you, right? I mean, you believe if somebody calls you and says something, you're inclined to believe them. Yeah.
So it turns out that the FTC, so this all resolved itself well. The police couldn't catch the scammers. They were probably in a different country. The woman didn't lose her money, and they thanked profusely the clerk, Crumbly, who observed this and then called the police. But they said at the end of the article, the FTC has warned that scammers use Bitcoin ATMs as the most prevalent part of the scam, because the minute something goes in there, you're like, bye-bye.
Yeah,
right?
Can't get it back.
It says anyone who receives a text about account charges should avoid calling the number in the message. Use the company's official app, website, card number, or verified customer service line. And this is just the truth. Regardless of what you think that's coming over the text. Tim, would the exception be, have you ever gotten text messages from our corporate card saying, like for a fraud alert or something?
I did, and I was just going to bring that up. But, I got one recently that there were charges, but the address said Bank America. It wasn't Bank of.
Okay.
And I called, and I'm glad I called, but I said, I got this. And I said, it was and they said, no, we haven't, card's fine. And then when I double checked, it was Bank America. It wasn't Bank of. But it's they're getting far more, as you said, sophisticated. And I have friends who both in the last year have told me about their parents that are smart people, but were both scammed.
Yeah.
One of them for $12,000 and one for another amount closer to $10,000, and they felt so bad about it after they realized what they did. But the same sort of thing. This is the bank, you're overdrawn, or
you need to put this in.
Yeah, my mother has gotten the calls where it's your son or your grandson's in jail. Well, thankfully my mother doesn't have a grandson, so she knew that was a scam. But I could see where she would be concerned or fall for it. So I always tell her, do not. if you owe somebody money or somebody owes you money, tell them to call, ask for their number. You'll call them back or tell them to send you a letter and go through it that way. Nobody's calling you looking for money or texting you that you went through the Easy Pass lane. That's the other big thing out east here. Now you're getting all the toll violations.
Yeah. Again, right?
Yeah. And it seems like, I've driven there. Got my toll thing not work. But because Richard gets those nonstop, and I just tell him to delete them.
I think it was maybe 3 years ago. I sat at my computer and I got this email. It looked kind of official. And it was like, we know what you're doing. We've had a camera. We've had some kind of a thing, we've been using the camera on your computer to track your porn usage.
No.
And we're going to tell everybody what you're doing and the women you look at. And I'm like, okay, that's a scam. I'm not looking at straight porn.
But even if it wasn't, who are they going to tell that's going to be concerned? Oh, John looked at porn on the internet. Oh,
all the things you do, all the nasty things you do in front of your computer. I'm like, like looking at my bank balance and crying, and and the women you're attracted to. I'm like, click, delete. Bob got the same email about like 3 hours later. It's like, this is bullshit. I'm like, yeah.
Crazy. So the woman did not give over her money.
No, she saved her. She was saved. Her 18 grand went back to the bank, and I think she's going to be very careful moving forward.
Well, I have a very low level story, John.
Although I love your story, I don't know how low level it is. I think it probably happens more than we suspect.
So the headline is woman, singular, smuggled a full bottle of Pinot Grigio into prison inside her vagina. So
God bless, right?
The woman's name is Monique Megciani, and she was charged with attempting to... You got to see the
picture of her too, by the way.
Charged with attempting to smuggle a bottle of Pinot Grigio into jail. And what had happened was she had this, the headline says, or the story says, she had an unhinged idea to sneak a bottle of booze into jail. And this was while she was being processed in Michigan. So what initially had happened is she had gone the day prior to CVS, and she had grabbed a bottle of Cupcake Pinot Grigio, and she ran into the bathroom and chugged it down and then got drunk. And so she was drunk in the store.
On Cupcake Pinot Grigio. Okay.
Cupcake Pinot Grigio, which you and I are familiar with, at the CVS pharmacy in Grand Traverse. And so the store then barred her from coming back, and they called the police and said, she's not allowed to come in the store anymore, trespass. As a side note, this poor woman is also a drug and substance abuse counselor. So,
well, we're gonna. Okay, I'm shocked. Yeah. I have to. Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, Tim supplied a picture of the woman. Mascara's running on one eye. Her hair is kind of wild, shortcut. Looks like painted on eyebrows. It's not like we were saying earlier. Hair jacked up to Jesus, face done by the numbers. Yeah. A drug and alcohol abuse counselor.
Yeah, she worked as an associate counselor at a substance abuse treatment center in Michigan, where she helped people through the critical stage of detox from illicit drugs and alcohol abuse. So she gets told not to come to the CVS. She gets taken down. She gets arrested. She gets tripped downtown. This is on May 9th. On May 10th, she hightails it back to the CVS. So she gets a bottle of this Pinot Grigio. They say screw top. It's the screw top Cupcake Pinot Grigio.
They were even specific about screw top?
Yeah, screw top. Yeah, so it's easy to access, I guess. Uh-huh. So they said the cops found her at the checkout counter, and they arrested her for trespassing on property again. So at the time, the arresting officer was unaware that Megciani had a bottle of Cupcake up her hooch. So she didn't know that. So they just thought she was going back in the bathroom to drink again. So she was cuffed and led to the police vehicle. And when she got to the police car, she couldn't get in. She had trouble getting in. She couldn't bend to get back in the police car.
She had a glass bottle of it.
Up her hooch. So wow. They finally said with some maneuvering, they were able to fold her into the back seat.
Fold her.
She gets there. And so they get her down to the Traverse City Police Department, and she's not moving too fast. She's shuffling along there. They said, They said during the examination, they actually had a female officer come and check her one final time before they were going to book her. And then they said during the examination, they learned that she had concealed a bottle of Cupcake Vineyards Pinot Grigio inside her person. That's how they said it. So they told her she needed to take it out. And she reluctantly complied, they said. It took her a while to convince her she needed to take it out. She said she had nothing in there, but I guess they tap, 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 heard the glass. They said they ordered her to remove the wine from her cavity. The screw top container was removed. It was still intact, cops reported. The evidence was destroyed due to a biohazard concern. So they didn't keep the wine, even though the cap had not been broken. She was held with a $6,000 bond and charged with a felony and misdemeanor trespass account.
What publication did you find this in? What did you?
It was on the local affiliate news. It popped up on one of my social feeds, and I thought, well, this can't be true. And then I initially thought, well, it's got to be Florida. And so then I did type it in, and it populated by a number of stories. Even checked the smoking gun to make sure that it was true. But it occurred end of May 2026, Traverse City, Michigan. And the sad part was, I guess, is that she was a substance abuse counselor. But, you know, how much is a bottle of Cupcake at the CVS? I can't imagine.
Yeah, I'm still gobsmacked that she put so if you're watching on YouTube, we also have a picture of the Pinot Grigio Cupcake bottle. Yeah. It's not exactly a small thing.
No.
It's a bottle of wine.
Yeah. It reminded me of the time. Remember Josh Kilmer Purcell? We had him on years ago.
You're talking about like when he was Aqualicious, the drag queen?
Yeah, right. His memoir of he had done his memoir, and he was talked about a story. There was a drag queen one night that was, even though it was freezing cold out, she was sweating and she was, pacing up and down. The show was running late, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. Well, she had one of those Woolworth candy cane tubes up her chute. And she was going to spit out the M&Ms on stage. And they said that's why she was in such discomfort. And I remember reading that passage on the Amtrak, and it's one of the first times I laughed out loud reading the story.
What was the name of was it I Am Not Myself?
I'm Not Myself These Days.
Yeah. Yes. And it was a wonderful book because it also outlined his early career in copywriting and advertising.
Yep.
And some of the issues he was dealing with as a young man. And there was I sometimes scroll on Instagram to my dismay, or actually this was on X, I'm sorry, the dumpster fire formerly known as Twitter. And a video pops up, and it's a surgery bay, and someone's laying face down, and doctors are around the guy's, it was a man, his butt, and they pulled out a cucumber. And I just thought that has to be AI. And I'm reading the comments, and everybody's like AI. And then someone says, I'm an ER doc, and this happens all the time, like all period of time. I just swiped up and quit the app. I'm like, I'm done. I'll just. Oh no,
my friend Chris in the ER in Philly said you can't imagine
what comes out,
particularly on a Friday or Saturday night. He says what people with light bulbs up there. He said the best one was the trophy, the track trophy, with somebody with the hands.
Oh, and didn't the person come in and say they slipped?
They were dusting. Yeah, they were dusting and slipped, and the trophy went up his ass. He's like, I guess everyone has a half a gallon of Vaseline on their ass when they're dusting. But I would say, how do you handle these things? He's like, well, because we'll certainly laugh about it later, but at the time, it's dangerous, right? Particularly, he said the worst was the light bulbs. He said if those broke,
shattered, oof,
yeah, it would have been so dangerous. But he said,
but you're in an ambulance or you're being taken to the hospital. You're like, okay, what do I say about how the trophy got up there? I'm dusting. The Swiffer didn't reach high enough. I mean, I don't even.
Oh. Seinfeld did something like that with that Fusilli Jerry when Kramer was making pasta things or something, and I think Frank Costanza slipped and he had a Fusilli Jerry went up his butt or something. I remember that, but yeah, no, you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So So anyway, the poor woman had the bottle of cupcake and they had to dump it out.
So we had a scam. A scammer did not succeed, and the old lady kept her money. And someone who's a substance abuse counselor is taken to the police station with a bottle of cupcake wine up her hoo-hoo. Okay, her for JJ, right?
I'm sure you haven't seen these stories. So our business birthday this week, Mr. Nash.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
If there was a hero, John, she would be your hero, I think.
Oh, I love this birthday. When I saw the picture come in and I knew who she was, I'm like, ding, 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 ding.
Ruth Graves Wakefield, born June 17th in 1903. She died at 73 in 1977. An American chef known for her innovations in the baking field, but what she was really known for, she pioneered the first chocolate chip cookie recipe, an invention many people assume was a mistake, but it quite frankly was not. So she essentially invented, or they said, the Toll House chocolate chip cookie. So she was, she's taught economics at a local high school after she graduated in 1924, also worked at a hospital as like a dietitian. And she met a gentleman, and they ended up buying, I'm going to try to get his name correct here, Fred Graves. And she ended up buying a building, which was an old toll house in Massachusetts. And they decided that they were going to cook and make foods. And so she had her own recipes from her own cooking prowess, and then she used a bunch from her grandmother's recipes. And the Toll House became a very popular place. They said they started initially with 6 tables and went to 70. And her food was so regarded, and so many people would come from all over to try the foods, that they convinced her to write some cookbooks. And so she did a number of Toll House cookbooks, and of which she called her tried and true recipes. So she was, she had said that one of the things they sold all the time at the restaurant was a butterscotch pecan cookie, or pecan cookie.
That sounds good.
So it was a thin butterscotch cookie, and the guests loved it. And she had said it was, which she felt, part of her other colonial style desserts that she'd been serving to her customers. And she wanted to do something different. And she had taken a trip to Egypt. And while she was on vacation in Egypt, she had this idea of trying to incorporate chocolate into perhaps some of her desserts. So they said as she was looking to improve this butterscotch cookie, she was initially going to just add some melting chocolate, they called it, or melting squares, into this blonde batter. And she got when she was at the cabinet, whatever, she was all out of it. She didn't have any. So she did find a chunk of semi-sweet chocolate from Nestle that was in there. And so she didn't know what to do. They said, continuing to improvise, she decided that she wasn't going to actually use this melting chocolate. She got an ice pick and she started chipping off pea-sized bites
of the of the just chocolate
of this semi-sweet chocolate bar. So a big chunky Nestle chocolate semi-sweet chocolate bar. So she said, as opposed to the melting chocolate, which would kind of make it a chocolate cookie, or it would expand, she said, as a surprise,
she wanted little nuggets in there. She wanted little.
Well, she didn't know that. She said the bits maintained their chunky form as they baked. So chocolate usually would just melt, and what she used to use, these melting chocolates. But after she used the semi-sweet, for whatever reason, the bits maintained their chunky form as they baked. So she served them, and people loved them. And they asked her what it was, and she said, "I'm using semi-sweet chocolate from Nestle, and it maintains its chunkiness, or its candy-like quality. It doesn't melt." So it became very popular. Newspapers started writing about it. People wanted to get the recipe. She ended up got contacted by Nestle, and they had asked her if they could print the recipe. And so she said yes. They gave her $1 for the recipe. And
$1?
Yes, she got
it. Okay, continue. Sorry.
So they said, so So I'll read it to you just so you know. They said that her cookies became so popular, people began requesting the recipe. She ended up calling them Toll House cookies, and it became the most popular dessert at the time. So in exchange for Wakefield offering Nestle permission to print the recipe and market the semi-sweet chocolate as the key ingredient, she received $1 in payment for the recipe rights and a lifetime supply of baking chocolate. She also got a consulting deal with Nestle, they said. But they said, in tribute to the origin story, the Nestle then branded these cookies Toll House cookies. So that's where the name came from. They said there was a myth that Wakefield accidentally developed the cookie and that she expected the chocolate chunks would not melt. She says that is not the case. She said, I deliberately invented this cookie because we had been serving the butterscotch cookies with nut for so long with ice cream. And even though everybody loved them, I wanted to do something new and came up with this thought about chocolate, which she had experienced when she was in Egypt. They were so popular in World War II, a number of people started calling to ask her to send them to the troops overseas. And initially, they just went to Massachusetts troops because that's where Toll House was based. But they said she soon received letters from all over the country, and they would send packages of Toll House cookies to the troops in World War II. She retired in 1966. She sold the Toll House, which has since burned down in the 80s. And she died in 1977 in Plymouth, Mass. at 73. But
I love
can you
this.
imagine $1 and a lifetime supply of chocolate? Cooking chocolate.
Well, I'm a chocoholic, especially if it's dark chocolate, 72% or higher. I know a lot of people don't like dark chocolate.
I don't know how you do that.
I adapted because when I learned that milk chocolate could really just, then I learned there are health benefits to dark chocolate. I'm like, let me get on that train.
Well, there certainly are. However, it doesn't taste good, John.
I like it.
It's bitter.
Okay.
Isn't it really bitter?
Dark chocolate with sea salt and almonds. It's great.
I like the dark chocolate with orange that they have. You can get that Aldi bar.
Another excellent. See, you could do it. But wait a minute. Let's go back.
Every time I've tried eating that, she got $1.
One of the most famous recipes in the world. It has to be, right?
Yeah.
$1.
She got $1 and all the cooking chocolate she wanted.
But here's the thing. When you were talking about how she did this, it's amazing to me that nobody else had the idea of busting up the chocolate in such a way that they would add it to discover that when it was like a chip, it didn't necessarily melt and invade the whole cookie. You know what I mean?
Well, as I read this, they were melting squares of chocolate that people use for baking. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever used this semi-sweet. And so I don't know what they were using the semi-sweet for.
Baker's chocolate was the other stuff?
And so that's why and it was a huge chunk. And so that's why she broke it up in little bits. And I think she assumed maybe that it was going to melt a little bit.
Yeah.
But it didn't melt. And, but yeah, you're right. I'm surprised.
No one else did it.
Well, it's those simple things, right? That
another thing we missed.
Well, I missed it. I missed the cookies. Well, hopefully we'd have got more than $1.
A lifetime supply of baking chocolate.
Baking chocolate.
Wow. What people
it was like,
could...
Yeah. Yeah. So,
well, it's a great business birthday. And I, particularly you are correct. It was right up my alley. Hey, we're going to take a quick pause here. And when we return, we have a shop talk from Fast Company, the magazine, about AI and about the 80-20 rule. Should we perhaps leave it there at the 80-20 rule?
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis of it.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. They're all business, except when they're not. It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Doing it. You
Top
need to get a
the
little
pride to you. Top of the
Do
pride.
we need to get you a green derby hat or something?
You were debating a foam type of hat,
Yeah.
like something that would, leprechaun hat, right?
Maybe.
And then you got to get the little beard, and we need a pot of gold.
Well, yeah.
We're
Now,
up
the
in-
beards are usually, I was looking at them, they're red or gold. The
They're
beards
red or
are
gold,
kind of
and
this.
I think they do this. There's a string that goes around your ear. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll get that. Maybe you can
I
do the
don't know
whole
if
show
we-
as the Pride.
As you
Leprechaun.
said, we do what we want to do. Some people hate it. It might be pushing the envelope on the Pride Leprechaun to go that far, but
Hey, listen, listen. There's a toy there in it. If you believe,
there's
we should go on.
something.
We should go on Shark Tank. The Pride Leprechaun.
We want.
How many have you sold? 3.
3.
But we also
make it up in
we have
volume.
line extensions. We got candeliers. We've got round beach towels. We have our whole line of goods that
that's
just
right.
never hit. So, okay. Well, we digress. So it is the shop talk part of our program here. And John had found this article at a Fast Company. The headline is AI may replace 80% of skills. This last 20% will make you irreplaceable. And essentially they talk about, and we've done a number of stories about AI and how it really has in many ways changed tasks, I guess, that people do that may be, would you say recurring or constant?
Repetitive,
So if you
recurring, heavy lifting, research. Yeah.
So if you were a coder or you were somebody writing code or something, and that was would you say that's just a repetitive job? Or
on the coding side, there's probably a number of things that are cut and paste. If you're building a site, there's things that are functionality that is duplicated and you could just cut and paste. But the artistry of the site design is a little differently. But I would agree. In some industries, there's just a lot of repetitive or necessary work like research or writing.
Yeah, they said it could be tedious or it could be doing the same tasks over and over again. And they said in a lot of jobs, 80% of those jobs will be or could be affected by AI or artificial intelligence. But they said one part that's very important, that 20%, which John mentioned earlier in the T is the 80-20 rule, is that there's a certain amount of judgment or creativity that's of value, which only humans can certainly handle at this point. And that's still important. So while AI may replace some repetitive tasks or make things quicker, there's still the idea that your judgment has value and that your ability to, to synthesize things is also of value. Was that your takeaway? Do you believe that that's the case? Because we've used AI a lot, and many times you and I both said it's a great start. But you have to put it in, you have to put it in your own voice or many times correct it. It's not always right.
So Tim analyzed the article perfectly. The author says, or actually the CEO of Box.com, an online web storage cloud computing company, Aaron Levi, said 80% of a task, the heavy lifting, repetitive processing, can be done by AI. But you step in with your domain expertise, judgment, and relationships, and that makes you irreplaceable because you look at the work it did, you're able to synthesize that and say, no, I'm going to use this, this, and this, and you can move forward. The thing that I took away from this, I agree with the article completely, but I'm saying that as a seasoned professional. Seasoned professional, I should take that back. As someone who's worked in it for years. So I agree with the premise, but the 20% thing, you get to that in your career by doing the repetitive stuff, by being in particular jobs, by working with others, by having bosses who teach you things. So let's assume that AI wipes out all that stuff. There's going to be a class of people that may or may not have the 20, maybe I'm wrong, the 20% it takes to have the judgment. Did you sense that in the article, or am I like totally
that's a great point, because there is having done all that legwork or all the work we've learned or we've done over the years builds you to where you're able to discern things. It reminds me, you and I had a copywriter, a friend of ours, Jeff, one time, and he told us a story where he had been asked by a major corporation to come up with a tagline, and he did it on the spot.
Yep.
And they said to him, "Oh, well, why are we paying you so much money? You did that in 30 seconds." He goes, "No, I did that in 30 years."
Perfect example. That's the, Tim, you encapsulated the entire article, in my opinion, with that example. And I agree with that. But as I said, if Jeff, if he didn't have those 30 years, wouldn't have come up with it on the spot, right?
No. And they were where they were coming from was, well, why am I paying you? You know, you came up with that while we're on the phone here. He said, well, you're paying for my expertise and my experience. And I didn't do this in 20 seconds. I did this. It was 30 years of my knowledge and trial and error and everything else that goes into building a career. I've always remembered that because sometimes people will say, you and I were on an assignment out west, and you and I were walking. We were away from the crowd. And you said, here's what it is, boom, boom, boom. And it was three things. And I'm like, you know what, you're right.
Trust, and something else, and discovery,
Discovery. And I thought, there it is. And we didn't share it with them right away because you want to make it look like, right? Because for that same reason. No, for that same reason. You're like, it's done. Here it is. Boom, 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 boom. And then we went and executed against it. But you want to make it, but somebody could have said, oh, you just came up with that. Why am I paying you to do that? Well, you didn't come up with it, right?
Another example from Tim's auto career, we were working on, was it the WRX or the Impreza? And you guys knew based on dealer orders or cars that would move off the lot, like there was sleds that had to be pushed off because they never got sold, right? And you knew from the Baja, the half truck, half car. But we were doing something, and a firm that dealt in the web, they're like, you have to build new factories for you're going to be selling so many
much traffic,
cars.
so much web traffic,
and all the guys that just said, no, we're going to sell about 146 a month. And like, you know what? It turned out that you were right down to like one or two off. It was either 145 or 147. They were predicting based on what was coming in from the online response. Like, I like this. It's different than what this article is talking about, obviously, about this having 80% of your workload being taken care of by an AI chatbot or assistant versus the 20% that you bring. But it's that, what I call that anecdotal kind of lived experience knowledge, which is what this article is talking about, where you just know better, or you're bringing your judgment and your years of expertise. I hope the younger generations are able to get the years of expertise to have the judgment call, right?
Right. No, you're exactly right. It's that judgment, the value of your judgment or your experience that can help put things in perspective better than just maybe something that gets spit out. Because you could ask, we've done this, you ask AI something, is this a great idea? Yes. But unless you've actually challenged it to say,
be critical.
Be critical, or show me another way, or whatever. And there's things that you and I know for a fact that we've tested where we put in and it's come out wrong.
Yep.
And you can always tell. I mean, John and I, there's a somewhat of a peer that seems to be acting as if they're blogging, but it is so obviously a AI generated piece of work. Because you can tell by there's always a positive followed by a negative. And what do you call it? The long dash. You got a name for
M
that.
dash. It's an M dash.
The M dash. Obviously, it's AI. It's spit out AI, and not in their voice either. We know the way that they are. It's not their voice.
He didn't even bother editing. The end of this article that Tim was referencing, this Fast Company thing, I think the giveaway is here. He says, if you've been doing meaningful work for any serious amount of time, you've accumulated things AI cannot access. AI is taking the parts of your job you probably didn't love that much anyway, even if that requires your input. But that line, if you've been doing it for any serious amount of time, you've accumulated things. Okay, so you're a recent college grad and you're not getting that serious amount of time in the profession you've chosen, but AI, yeah. I agree. This is one of those 50-50s. Like, I like the article because I agree with its summation, but I also think that it's ignoring a whole problem, which is if you can't build up the time, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, it was a good story. I thought it was a good piece. People are fearful of AI, right? So it's
rightfully so, I think. especially when it comes to stuff like this, right? I mean, Tim and I used to have a roster of copywriters that we could turn to in a moment's notice. And these are guys, men and women, who actually, like his friend Jeff we were just talking about, they could listen. They were good listeners, and they would read a creative brief, and they would literally land so close to what it had to be that it was like a quick revision. We turn to AI these days, and if the more input you give Claude.ai, for example, if you're doing a writing example, the more input you give it, the better it gets. And that's kind of scary, because we were paying $1,500, $2,500, whatever we were paying for copy, right, Tim?
Right.
And that's just not being earned by someone now.
Right. And you have a friend in the software business that's the same, right? That was doing coding.
Out. He's out. He's no longer coding websites because AI can do it for you. Anyway, we're going to leave it there, folks, for the day. We want to thank you for joining us here on the Focus Group. Hopefully you're in the 20% that can still make a judgment call about something that's happening on your job with AI. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. You'll learn about us there, including TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast, 3 stories, as Tim says, in and out, 20 minutes, stuff you've got to know about. Although in this show, we had a woman who had a bottle up her vajayjay and a scammer that was, foiled. Yeah. Never know what you learn on the Focus Group. So we'd like to say, don't text and drive, arrive alive. That way we can see you next week here on the Focus Group. Have a good one.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.